Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Catherine Jate, and today I'm here with a special guest, Callie Chorvas. She was abducted 12 years ago, and her abductor has finally been caught. Tonight, we will discuss her struggles with coping with Stockholm Syndrome and how it has affected many others just like her. Stockholm Syndrome is when feelings of trust or affection are felt in certain cases of kidnapping or hostage taking by a victim towards a captor. According to the FBI, 8% of victims who are kidnapped suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. So Callie, how do you feel to have lived through every parent's worst nightmare?
It doesn't feel like it's real most of the time. It feels like an out-of-body experience, like how could this be happening?
How has your relationship developed with Veronica Quinn, your abductor?
I felt extremely guilty. I didn't deserve all these nice things when I went back home to Greg, my dad, while she was in jail, suffering.
Callie, are you hungry?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, dinner's ready.
Smells great.
You're so sweet. I love to cook.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there and pretend I was part of this family. I'm not Phoebe's daughter, and I couldn't keep pretending that I was. The need to leave overtook me. I pushed away from the table and ran to my room, where I dove beneath the covers. The comforter smelled dusty, as if it had been waiting for me all this time. It was comforting, but heartbreaking at the same time. Such a bad person. How could I have almost eaten a hot dinner while Veronica sits in jail? My Veronica was the only family I had for 12 years. No matter what she did, I would always love her.
I can't imagine ever being in a situation like that, Callie. It's strikingly similar to the J.C. Ducard case we covered years ago.
I was only 11 years old, playing outside just like any other child would be in my neighborhood in South Lake Tahoe, California. My stepdad was in the garage working on some car things while I was in front playing. It was just a usual Monday in June after the school year had finished, so I spent most of my time outside on my bike or drawing in the driveway or on chalk or something. But on this Monday, I wasn't expecting to be kidnapped right in front of my house. All I remember from that moment was the fear. What's happening? Where's Carl? Where am I going? All these questions popped up one after another, over and over again.
I caught a glimpse of the scene from the garage window, but I was in complete shock, like, how could this possibly be happening? I froze, and by the time I could blink my eyes again, she was gone. I ran into the house and I called the cops. There were searches that immediately took place. There were aircrafts looking for her, canine units looking for something, anything to help track her down. Hundreds of police officers and investigators looking for little Jay, but they never found her. She was gone.
A couple hours later, I was actually able to see the faces of my kidnappers, a man and a woman. They seemed to be a couple. If they hadn't been the ones who kidnapped me, one would assume they were a sweet, ordinary couple. Obviously not. Immediately, they locked me up in a room. The door could only be opened from the outside by the man and woman. The first couple of weeks were horrible. I was constantly trying to convince myself someone was going to bust through that door and save me, but that never happened. Day after day, I would be left alone. The man would come in at night and touch me in ways no other 11-year-old would want to be touched. The longer I was stuck in there, the more often he came. He eventually started raping me multiple times a day. I was so young. It was horrible. When I was 14, he got me pregnant. 3 years later, when I was 17, he got me pregnant again. It was only when I gave birth to my daughters that I was allowed to go outside sometimes. The only thing I could do to keep me from going insane was to write in my journal every day. A couple of years later, I stopped being hopeful. I stopped dreaming about what it was like to escape. After spending so long without any affection, laughter, or love, I was severely depressed. Any human contact I got was overappreciated. It messed up my mind. I didn't know how to leave. I eventually ended up believing that I wanted to stay after hearing so many times from my captors that my family never loved me. After spending 18 years with the ones who kidnapped you, your mind does things you can't explain. I mean, the only human contact I ever got was from Philip when he would rape me or take me outside. Am I really going to spend the rest of my life hating him for that?
We eventually lost hope that we were ever going to find JC alive. It had been years. What would we expect, for her to just show up at her front door? Like I said, it's been years. We couldn't even imagine how damaged or scarred she would have become. But our hopes and prayers were answered when the authorities called us and told us they had found her in Antioch, California. This was in August 2009, 18 years after she'd been kidnapped.
I was out with Philip and our 2 daughters. He was passing out flyers for this new church on school campus when these 2 security guards came up to us and told him that he had to go register it with the campus office. They noticed he had a previous criminal felonies, so they did a full background check and contacted his parole officer. Since we were with the kids, it never registered in Philip's record that he had children. They immediately called authorities and connected the dots. Philip and his wife were soon arrested, and I was reunited with my family, and they met my 2 daughters.
I didn't even know what happened to me could happen to others.
What does it feel like to sympathize with your abductor?
I mean, even though what she did to me was horrible, I still love her. I forgive her.
You love her?
She's the only family I've ever had. How can I not?
Have you ever met Veronica ever since she was arrested?
Yeah, I have, multiple times. She finds me wherever I go. When I lived with Greg, she found out where his house was and stayed with me.
What did you do when she found you?
Well, I mean, she looked horrible and she was fresh out of jail, so I gave her a place to stay. I felt bad.
Wait, you felt bad?
Yeah, I felt bad.
Veronica? Veronica, you can't drink in here.
Look at you, just a regular little daddy's girl, aren't you?
No one is supposed to be here. This is Greg's new construction site. He's building a new house for you? His family.
Aren't you his family?
Like I said, no one is supposed to be here, Veronica. He's showing me the house tomorrow. I let you stay here because I felt bad for you. Please be gone by tomorrow.
Going back to what we said earlier, how can you feel bad for someone who did this to you?
You would only understand how I felt if you were in my shoes.
Well, this seemed to be the case with another victim, Colleen Stan.
On Thursday, May 19th, I stepped onto the shoulder of the highway and stuck out my thumb. It was my friend's birthday and I wanted to go surprise her. She lived more than 400 miles south in Westwood, California. I was well aware of the dangers of hitchhiking, but it seemed like the best option at the time. The first car that pulled over was full of young guys. It felt super unsafe, so I turned it down. The next car that pulled over was a young couple close to my age, with their kid in the back seat. I immediately got in because what could be safer? After driving for a bit, we stopped at a gas station where I got off to use the bathroom. As I returned to the car, there was a strange wood box sitting on the back seat next to where I was seated. We returned onto the highway for a bit before the driver, who was named Cameron Hooker, asked me if I minded if they went to go see some ice caves that were in the area. Trying not to sound rude and ungrateful, I said sure. I mean, what was I supposed to do, get out and walk? After a while, Cameron turned onto a rather deserted road. He then pulled over and his wife Janice, holding the baby, got out of the car. At that point, I was starting to feel anxious. But it was too late. As Janice walked away from the car, Cameron also got out of the car and came to the back. He then held a knife to my neck and forcefully put my head inside the wood box. This was when I knew my life was about to end. They had taken me to their home in Red Bluff, California, where they led me to their basement. Once in their basement, they took the box off my head, but put me in a different box, coffin-shaped. I was petrified. For the next few weeks, I was mostly kept in that box. I felt as if I had no control of anything. Cameron told me that he was in control, and that Colleen no longer existed. He whipped me and burned me many times. He also made me believe that there was this big and powerful organization called the Company that watched me and listened to me constantly. He told me they would painfully torture me and also harm my family if I tried to escape. He also made me sign a contract. A contract that said that the Company would have the right to come and possess me and sell me to whomever they pleased if I didn't sign it. As ridiculous. For most of the year, I was allowed out of the box. During the day, I would have to watch their children while Cameron and Janice were at work. I cooked and also cleaned around the house. 3.5 years into my captivity, living in a box, being abused repeatedly, Cameron took me home for a visit with my family and left me to stay overnight. While at home, I did not reveal the truth about my situation. This was because I was afraid of the Company and the things that they would do. The Company always kept me from seeking help. My family thought that I may have been involved in a cult because of my homemade clothes, lack of money, and absence of communication over the years. Cameron had to pose as my boyfriend, so I returned to his house the next day. It was due to my happiness at visiting my family. Cameron wanted me to become a second wife, which was obviously a turning point for Janice. Janice Hooker was also being tortured and brainwashed over the years by Cameron. She said it started since their first date. Janice said that she survived their relationship with Cameron by denial. I was eventually released because of Janice. Janice had gone to the authorities by guidance of her minister. I then went to the bus station and called Cameron to inform him that I was leaving him. He had reacted by bursting into tears, and so I caught a bus home. In the months that followed, I did not contact the police, but I still continued to call Cameron regularly. I did this because I wanted to give Cameron a chance to reform. 3 months later, Janice reported Cameron to the police.
When did you feel like you couldn't protect her anymore?
It was a couple of months after I was rescued that was when I realized she would never change.
So my court date is coming up. I'm gonna be honest, Callie, I don't want to go to jail. I've been laying low, but once I missed my date.
I'm ready. We can go now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a car. Got a good deal on it from Tony, but it's left me cash strapped.
I've got my savings from the gift shop.
That's my girl. Think it's enough to get us to Oregon?
Oregon?
Yeah, I was thinking about how beautiful it was there, remember? There are so many little hideaways tucked along the coastline. We're going to Oregon. We had a good time there, Callie. You loved Frank.
Mom, I didn't.
Of course you did. You were so young, so maybe you don't remember.
I remember everything.
What the hell is wrong with you?
You don't get it. Frank molested me.
I get it. You don't want to go to Oregon, but you don't have to make up everything.
I'm not.
Callie?
It's true, Mom. Sometimes when you were asleep or at work, he would come into my room.
No, that's not true.
It is true. He would take off my nightgown. You remember the one with the Hello Kitty on it? And he would put his fingers...
Callie, stop it! Callie, I swear to God, I didn't know.
You know what? You're never gonna change. I'm going home. I couldn't believe that I had protected her for so long and not realize the pain she was putting me through. It was like I was under a spell or something.
That's true. One of the most bizarre cases I've ever heard of Stockholm Syndrome was in 1997.
Kathy, I can't help you if you're not going to be honest with me.
I already told you, I killed them.
All by yourself?
Yes.
I know that's not true.
It is.
How'd you do it, huh? How'd you manage to abduct a child and control 2 adults while you slit their throats?
Oh, come on. You know she's not responsible for this.
I'm sick of this.
Then leave us alone.
Where are your husband and son?
Look at me, Kathy. Don't listen to him. They stole your life. Let me help you get it back.
That girl is better off with my son than any other man she could meet in your society.
I'm sure you raised him well. Tell me about your mother.
I've already told you everything. I killed them.
You're lying!
Kathy, look.
My name isn't Kathy.
Yes, it is. Your name is Kathy Gray. You're from Vienna, Virginia. Tell me where your husband and son are so I can help you get your life back.
I don't want to see this.
This is the tentative cut that your future husband made, slitting your mother's neck. Don't you recognize your own parents?
They murdered your family, Kathy. They took you in, but you were never really one of them.
No, I won't betray my family.
You know, this case is not only nationally known, but worldwide. And many people think that Stockholm Syndrome is just an excuse for the victims to use, especially since it cannot be properly diagnosed since researchers have not identified all the factors that put a person at greater risk of acquiring this illness. Many psychologists don't believe in the mechanism of Stockholm Syndrome. What do you think about it?
You know, I think people...
So you're agreeing?
No, if you'd let me talk, I can give you an answer.
Callie, it's been 12 years. We just want the truth.
You know, Mr. Tate, I don't think you can actually handle the truth. I'm done. I need to get some air.
Security!
I've waited 100 years, but I'd wait a million more.
You got the bail money?
Yeah, Tony came to tell me. Are you ready for another adventure, sweetie?
Wherever you are, Mom, I'll be right there beside you. I'm ready.
Stockholm Syndrome.
All right.
Okay.
Cut.
Okay, can I stop it now?